TLDR is, how can you tell the difference between burnout and just regular old motivation issues?
No, this is what I was upset about in the intro. Haley, no!
Hi, all. For as long as I can remember, I've always had a really rough time being able to put in effort. Be it homework, work responsibilities, or relationships, I always seem to have the ability or smarts to get by, but I just can't put in the effort to actually get anything done. It often feels like I'm holding myself back in my career and schoolwork due to my own laziness. Over the years, and with the help of therapy, I've come to realize that some of this is due to anxiety. I overthink tasks in my head, become anxious, and then avoid them to cope. I am working managing this and pushing myself through anxiety, but I've now come across a separate problem. How can I tell if I'm avoiding things because of anxiety, or if my anxiety is being caused by me overworking myself? I am currently in my last full semester at university. I'll be doing a summer session to graduate in August, and I've been working towards the goal of graduating with my bachelor's in 3 years instead of 4. However, due to both COVID and my advanced schedule, the past 2 semesters, I've been taking an average of 20 credits. This semester especially has been a roller coaster between productivity and depression. One week, I'm ecstatic at having the motivation to work for 3 hours straight, and the next week, I'm laying around watching TikTok for 20 hours a day. I'm in a low patch right now and have begun to consider dropping a class and retaking it over the summer. However, I can't tell if this is just me avoiding my work and the stress it causes me, or if I would actually see benefits from the delay. It feels like I'm being lazy and giving up too easily, especially when I compare myself to the other seniors in my program. On the other hand, I can't deny that I'm not doing so hot mentally, academically, or in my job. If I'm being honest with myself, I know what I want the answer to be, and it's removing some of the stress from my plate. I just feel really guilty, as I know I could do the work if I just had the drive to get it done, and it feels like another failure of my willpower. At this point, I don't even know if I could manage to pass my summer semester, as even with less work, I'm still incredibly unproductive. Thanks for reading this if you do. Listening to the podcast has always been a really calming activity for me, and your advice has helped me a lot over the years. It's weird to say, but I've really enjoyed growing up with you guys, as well as watching you all from your early 20s to 30s. You've given me so much hope for the future, as well as joy in the present. I hope your week goes well.
Okay, first of all, Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devin Price. And Devin Price was a guest on our show. And that is a book that you need to read. Secondly, do not compare yourself to the other seniors in your program. Comparison is the thief of joy. I think the Buddha said that. I actually don't know who said it, but it's true. And also, I just talked about this in our intro, but I also have shifting motivations to not being motivated. And that's just human. That's just being a human. I think you're viewing yourself as some sort of like robot that has to be like at 110% at all times, but like nobody really is.
So I picked this question because it was incredibly relevant to a decision I actually made in the last couple of weeks. So I started a program in clinical psychology in January 2020. And when I started the program, I thought that maybe I would become a licensed therapist as sort of a backup plan in case, this very turbulent career that we've been talking about didn't work out. And over the last 2 years, I've been really lucky in that it seems like I have some more stability in my writing field, and that like by learning more about what it means to be a therapist, realize that doesn't really align with my goals or what I would want to do with my life, a large part due to the amount of paperwork involved, which sounds silly, but it is to be a therapist, it's a really high stakes thing to be, right? You have a lot of liability, you have a lot of responsibility, there's a lot of legality to it, and it just didn't feel like something that I wanted to pursue. But I was still in the clinical psychology program. And that program involves something called practicum, which is getting hours done, right? So it would be clinical hours where I was working with clients and basically being a therapist trainee. And it's a much bigger commitment during those 3 semesters when you're in practicum than when I'm just taking classes, because you're doing hours and hours a week at your site. And I started to dread practicum. I became incredibly anxious about practicum. Anytime I would talk about my program, I would bring up practicum and how I was freaking out about practicum and when was I going to do practicum. And I postponed when I was going to do it. It was like this thing that was like heavily weighing on me all the time. And then, I talked about it with enough people, and there was an ability to switch from the clinical program to just getting a master's in psychology. And the master's in psychology doesn't require practicum because a lot of people that take that program, their intention is to go on and get a PsyD or a PhD. And so it's a quicker program so that you can go right into getting the higher degree. And like with those degrees come the hours. But if I made the switch, so many of the classes that I've already taken don't go towards the degree.
Ah, fuck.
And I would have to take all of these classes that are much more sciencey that don't interest me. Like, I don't want to take scientific writing, you know? But I realized, and it was this really wonderful kind of new experience of listening to myself, that this anxiety that I was feeling about practicum and the fact that like the time requirement of practicum meant that I might never be able to complete the program was weighing so heavily on me that despite the downsides of switching to just getting the master's in psychology, it was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like made the decision that like in the last 2 weeks, I switched from getting a degree in clinical psychology to getting a master's in just psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And me a couple of years ago would have been like, you failure.
Mm-hmm.
How did you not go through with your goal? It is way less impressive to just have a master's in psychology than clinical psychology. Why? Most people would not know what the difference is.
I literally would never know that. Would never know that.
It would be like, but then you're not allowing yourself the opportunity to ever get licensed in the future. If your writing career does fail, then like the amount of time you've put in doesn't even make any sense. You've wasted all this money on classes that don't even go towards this I could just like, me a couple of years ago would have very much gone down that path. But me now, and this is like where I can really, really see the work that I've been doing in therapy and with myself. Me now said, you have to listen to what your mind is telling you, and you have to look at the realities of your life and your capabilities. And practicum was a major issue in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It was causing me so much undue stress and worry. And also practically, I didn't know if I'd ever even be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, by switching to the master's in psychology, I know eventually I will be able to take all of those classes because they're offered at night. Even if I have to go slowly, even if I'm lucky enough that I have so many career commitments, I can only take one class a semester. Over time, I know I will be able to complete that degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this really like wonderful learning experience for me, which I really think speaks to a lot of what you're saying about this one class and dropping the class and messing up your timeline and, you know, all these expectations you put on yourself, is you have to work with the reality of your situation and you have to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You said it even in the email that you know what answer you want. You want the answer that says you can drop the class. So you know in your heart that that's what you need to do. And not only do I want you to drop the class, I want you to release yourself from the guilt of dropping the class.
Absolutely.
I dropped a class this semester for the first time in my life. And like, I could have and now it's going to delay my graduation. I'm still going to have to take it. It's like a, you know, kind of, I didn't really solve anything.
Right.
But I could tell that I wasn't capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of being in touch with ourselves is understanding that we're not able to deliver at the same rate all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need breaks. Sometimes we need a lesser workload. Sometimes we can take advantage of when we're feeling better. But you're not a machine and you can't expect the same output day after day, year after year.
I just relate so much to this email. And I wanted to point out that this is a thing that I literally say to myself all the time, is that I have the ability or smarts to get by, right? I always say that I can get by, but I'm not actually like thriving or whatever it is. But like getting by is an achievement. Being able to get by. What do you mean by get by? And I always have to go over in my mind what I mean by that, where I'm like, well, I'm able to make money from being a writer, but I'm not able to like reach this level of success that I've built up in my mind. And it's probably because I sleep or I don't, go 24 hours a day. That whole like toxic thing of like, you have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce. And it's like, you don't have the support that Beyonce has. So like getting by is amazing. Getting by is something you should be so proud of yourself for.
Just between